recording here. This is the monthly district advisor update meeting. This is Max here at NDE. Like usual, go ahead and put who you are, where you're from into the chat if you haven't already. I've got everyone set to mute, but you can unmute yourself if you want to speak up and ask any questions, or else put that into the chat as well. Alrighty, first thing, just catching back up on collection windows. I said this last month, the fall window's been locked. All the late requests were processed and should show up in your fall snapshot locked 2020 reports. If you see anything that still looks off and you thought you had covered in a late request, please let us know, put it in an email to the help desk. Also now your 1819 data has been updated. So the end of year locked reporting window data has been updated. We pulled all the data from the follow-up collection, just those specific pieces of data that are listed in the follow-up collection in the calendar, and pulled that all over into the 1819 final set of data, well as any other 1819 late requests that happened in November. So we got all of that finalized just in time to build the graduation rates that are on the NEP. I assume everyone has seen that as of now. So now that the 1819 data is finalized there, our developers working with graduation rates is moving on and getting the 2020 cohort data built and starting to work. We've been working on it. We have ran into a few bugs that we're working out, so I'm hoping maybe by next week the 2020 cohort data will be running, and the cohort summary report will be running for 1920 at that time. So check on it again next week, but very soon anyways we'll be getting that report up and running, as well as some of the other ones for 1920, which I'll cover later. I believe our help desk, I'm hoping they finished by now, but if not, our help desk has been following up, getting district admins to sign off. I'm betting they're probably done by now. But do you want to have any question about the collection window? And you can unmute yourself if you need to talk. But I'll take that as no. Some updates about advisor validation. So we're working on setting up the remaining reports and errors for 1920. I've kind of been delayed by some other things that have to get done, so I'm kind of targeting the end of December for getting all the 1920 attendance and course reports turned on, and maybe a few others, but those are the big ones. Yeah, Melissa, this Google Doc I'm in, well, it's not really a Google Doc, but it's just posted on our meetings tab under Google. Anyway, so targeting, like I said, end of December to get everything up and running again, hopefully. We also have a developer working on starting, they're building some additions to the system that are on the front end, or a couple of different developers really. So we are going to be turning on more new error codes A lot of them are just kind of technical things we've discovered that we need to have. I believe I saw 2 that went out this week about if you, basically if a student has an immigrant code, or if a student is, I think, an English learner participant, they need to have a home language set. So it's something that's always been true, I think, but we just didn't have a way to enforce it this year, so we're adding error codes. So those were announced through the new Bolton system. So since everyone here probably would have been signed up for the new Bolton system, I'm assuming you got those. Or if you get them in a weekly update, you will probably get them by the end of the week. We are looking at doing updates to the student lookup by ID. We're going to show more program data on there and be able to show it better. A few tweaks to the discipline data that's shown on there. We're adding a few new fields to demographics lookup and the special ed lookup. In the demographics lookup, we're adding a flag that just says, is the student in a special ed program, yes or no? In the special ed lookup, we're adding fields for the new fields that were added in 1920. So that's the initial SPED entry date, the SPED hours per week, and the school hours per week. So we're adding those fields into that lookup finally. Another thing we're kind of looking at is reporting window options for lookups. Right now, when you are using a lookup, you don't get all the same reporting options, like fall locked, end of year locked, like you see when you're looking at the student reports. And so we've kind of been having a discussion internally, I guess, about what data should show there. So at this point, now that your 18-19 data is basically finalized, and say like you still have one of those errors, like a 439, I think, where it's saying that you had a student that was enrolled last year and they're not present this year. At this point, now that the 18-19 data is kind of finalized, I think we want you to only fix that in 1920 at this point. It's too late to add them to the 18-19 enrollment data because we wouldn't officially count that data. So in light of that, then I thought it would be a good idea that I updated the error code to point. So the 1920 439 error points at the 18-19 year-end locked data instead of the 18-19 live data. And the year-end locked is like the official data now. But that makes it kind of tricky then because the 18-19 errors are still running off live data. Some of the lookups were still running off of live data, so we're going to add some options. Like the enrollment lookup or the student lookup by ID doesn't have any options. So if you're looking at 18-19 in the enrollment lookup or the student lookup by ID, I think it would probably be a good idea to have that point at the official year-end lock data. But definitely if anyone has any feedback or comments about that, go ahead and speak up. Basically, in general, if you have 18-19 errors right now, I mean, it doesn't really help you to try to fix those. It's the same as under NSSRS. If after the year was completely closed and you still had NSSRS validation errors for that year, you really didn't have any way to fix them. So yeah, question about the validation reports for 18-19, what were updated? Yeah, only some reports would have been updated, and it's all based on the data that is in the calendar, what was mentioned in the follow-up. didn't know, we're not, took down the link to the 1819 calendar. I don't think it's on this calendar. I forget. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, the follow-up is listed here. So everything listed here in the 1819 follow-up collection is what was updated. So enrollment, specifically your dropouts, completers, transfers, things that affect your graduation cohort. Special ed programs, Title I programs, special for this year, grades, courses, and discipline, because we were still catching up and homeless programs, because we were still catching up from last year. Typically, those wouldn't be in the follow-up. So stuff like your attendance reports, those did not change unless they shouldn't have, but unless you really did a lot of changes to your calendar. But generally no one had their calendar updated. So anyway, I know it's kind of complicated, especially compared to how NSSRS worked, but we're still kind of working out the process. Really, this is the first time we are, finishing a follow-up collection under advisors. So we're kind of, setting the process as we go. It'll be a little smoother next year. So Cheryl, when you say you won't let you drill down, you mean you can't pull up the list? That is probably a bug on our side. Definitely put in a ticket, Cheryl, if you haven't.
Yeah, Max. So what I was trying to look at this yesterday. So a couple things. One, right, we can't get into, like, when you click on the number, it won't show you who has the error. And then two, it looks like Power School fixed this, but we're still getting an error. So maybe a conversation we can have offline, but it looks like they're sending the right information of not English language, yet they're still showing up in an error.
Okay. Yeah, definitely put in a ticket. I haven't looked at the code for that one, but
okay,
we could see if there's a problem with it.
Thanks.
Just a reminder, other things that we will be bringing into advisor validation, probably getting to this in like January. It's just the last of the reports that we need. Post-school surveys definitely higher priority, so you could start seeing your list of 1819 grads to follow up on if you didn't know already. And the rest of these are other reports that were in NSSRS validation, but we will be working on to bring over. After we get through this list, essentially, we will have finished everything that was in NSSRS validation, I think. At least we have some form of it in the new system. Other new reports we'll be adding probably later in the school year, a CRDC report that lets you see what data you've reported to an advisor that's relevant to the CRDC collection, kind of previewing what data we'll be able to send to CRDC in the future when they ask for the 1920 data. Here's a new one to the list, something we're working on right now. So we will be posting new Perkins 5 reports, with the idea being we need to get you some reports that can help you with needs assessment. So even though we haven't officially switched to Perkins 5 yet, we'll be putting out a report that looks at the past 4 years of data, I think, reported under NSSRS and Advisor, but we'll present it to you in a Perkins 5 format. Essentially, any of our existing Perkins Career Ed reports, we're going to keep those totally separate. So going forward, you'll have those old reports will still be there, but then there'll be these new reports that will all say Perkins 5 on them, and we'll kind of keep them totally separate. So that's kind of one of our top priorities at the moment. We're working on that. Before the end of the month, we should have those reports posted. I believe we'll probably be posting them in advisor validation. So I guess if you aren't totally familiar with Perkins 5 yet, I don't know if everyone on here is following up on that. Basically, there's new definitions of concentrators and some slightly different indicators. But in short, concentrators are concentrators will now be calculated automatically just based on the courses that students are reported as taking. And there will not be participants anymore, so it kind of simplifies things. Which kind of leads into my next point. So 2021 updates. NDE, we're putting together the list of changes we're expecting for 2021. This is definitely subject to change. It's really not finalized yet. The idea is we'll be able to put all this up into a new sandbox for the SIS vendors to access in February versus last year. I think we got it up in like late April, early May, to just make sure we have good lead time for the vendors to prepare for next fall. Also this year, there really aren't as many changes as last year. Last year was kind of exceptional. But I wanted to talk about some of the things we're looking at and see if anyone had any comments on them. So yeah, number one, going back to Perkins 5, I believe we will be able to remove the CTE program entirely. So there's no participants anymore. And the concentrators were all, by definition, are calculated based on the courses taken. So there won't be any need for you to manually submit your concentrators anymore. At the same time, technical skill attainment isn't recorded that same way. There's not really an indicator related to that. So that technical skill attainment field in the program's not needed. The thing where you could say concentrator versus concentrator with post-secondary, we would be able to figure that out based on looking at the dual credit codes in the courses. So I'm pretty sure that we'll just be able to get rid of that program record entirely. We'll still have reports that show you calculation, concentrator numbers and things like that, but the actual program data itself wouldn't need to be there. And so it'll be a thing where we update all your career ed concentrator data nightly, essentially. So I'm happy about that. Collecting less stuff is always great.
So Max, this is Amy again. Yeah. So will you be providing some direction, or will there be some documentation about what users can expect to, I guess, see on the report, or what criteria would make the report, such as the certain classes, et cetera?
I'm not sure I don't know that we've officially put out our career and tech ed team. I don't think it's officially put out what the rules are for our indicators yet. We're still literally creating that this week. But,
okay. And then, for example, let's say that somebody looks at their report and something isn't reported right. Are we assuming that has to do with a course in a section not being reported right? Since that's where I miss.
Yeah, essentially, it's all going to be based off of course history.
Okay.
Courses, students. Basically, the definition, as I understand it right now, for concentrators are any students who take 2 courses in a program, 2 courses in a cluster that are at least intermediate or capstone level courses in our existing programs of study. So basically 2 high-end courses is all you need to be defined as a concentrator.
Within what, from 9th grade to 12th
Basically,
grade?
Yes, within 9th grade to 12th grade. So we're not necessarily worrying about this is only seniors anymore, stuff like that.
And
I'm
you'll
not
pull,
sure if there's only a primary or not, like you can only concentrate in one area
that was
or
my
not.
next question. Okay.
I need to get the answer to that still.
Okay. No, I just wanted to confirm that there would be some documentation to help districts make sure they're coding things correctly, et cetera, since you'll be deriving this. It sounds like you're moving in the
Yeah.
right direction.
Yeah, I'm not sure what communications have gone out already. I'm assuming since districts are in the middle of this process of, for the next 6 months or something, having to do a needs assessment as part of a Perkins application, I think. I'm not too up on that. So I believe some communication has gone out to districts about that already, but I expect there will be more coming from the Career and Tech Ed team soon, especially if we get all this, the logic kind of finalized about what we're measuring for all the accountability indicators. Then, yeah, I expect we'll be publishing that on our Career Tech Ed site.
Could you also let us know about that, Max? Because my data stewards are not necessarily the people that do the CTE.
Yeah, that's a good point, Melissa. Thank you.
Yeah. So if I have it, I'll make sure my data stewards know.
Yeah, that is something important to note as you talk to the program folks. You know, you've got two different parties who are doing this. Oftentimes the CE point of contact is not the same person as the data steward, but the data steward also needs that information. So just, I guess, encouraging that staff to make sure that either when they reach out to their point of contacts, they also say, hey, please share this with, or making sure that the help desk is pushing out that same information would be helpful to help fill the gap.
Yeah, thanks.
And definitely encourage those people to sign up for the bulletin if they haven't now that you can kind of, you know, lock into what you want there. Because, yeah, as I understand it, the process is actually pretty big as we get started in Perkins 5. There's districts have to do like local and regional assessments, meet with people, see, you know, what career areas are in need, essentially. So I assume that's going to be a lot of meetings, probably held by Career Tech Ed people. Let me back up, answer some of the questions. Cheryl's asking, do we have to enter concentrators for 1920? I am not exactly sure at this time. We are kind of in a in-between year where I don't know if the feds will really even care about your accountability for 1920. That might be true that we don't have to do it this year, but I really need to confirm that. Once we confirm it, definitely we'll publicize that, make it official, saying whether or not you actually have to submit that this year. So we should hear about that. You know, we'll be working that out soon, maybe by our next district meeting. Jeannie's asking, so yeah, the definition of concentrators have changed. In the past, it was someone who took any 3 courses in a cluster, and now it's someone who takes 2 courses in a cluster that are intermediate or capstone level. So slightly different, but now it'll all be automated in the future rather than relying on districts to report it. So we're talking, what I'm talking about for right now, Sandy, is referring to 2021. We will, in the 2021 school year, we will definitely be under the new Perkins 5 system. For 1920, though, we're kind of in a gray area between 4 and 5, and I'm not exactly sure where we're at this year. So yeah, Cheryl, I'm talking about in 2021, I'm thinking we can get rid of the CTE program fact entirely as far as collecting that data. So, like I said, we're definitely still in the middle of the process of really nailing down what all the changes mean for us. So there will be more updates about that in the future. Some other 2021 changes. This has just kind of come up, especially as we've been working with the new food program collection this year. And we kind of had to ask ourselves, well, you know, why is just the food program have a option that says, you know, not free or reduced? Most of our other program data, you know, we don't collect a SPED program record that says the student is not SPED. So why do we collect a food program record that says this person does not participate in a food program? But so we're thinking we may be able to just get rid of that code. It would just be a little simpler, extra data that the SISs don't have to send to us. At the same time, getting rid of the CEP flag for a student. At NDE, we know what schools are participating in community eligibility. So we could probably mark all those students in that school by definition as that without you having to send that to us. So I'm not sure if there's something we're overlooking here. Definitely, if anyone has any comments about these ideas for food program flags, let me know. CEP is Community Eligibility Provision. Essentially, I don't know the steps to get through this, but it's a federal program where basically everyone at a school or a district is just basically given free or reduced. I'm not sure if it's free or reduced, but you know, reduced price lunches for without having to actually verify all of their income data. Does anyone else have anything that sticks out if we got rid of these two codes? Would that cause any problems that you could think of? I'm gonna probably assume that means everyone likes this idea. So it doesn't necessarily mean it'll change what you see in your SIS. Your systems might still have these kind of codes or not. It just means they wouldn't send them to NDE anymore. All right, the last real big change, especially after seeing how much work it's taking everyone to do the SPED hours and school hours per week, and how many people are kind of having to make up those numbers to be able to send us something. Those are the numbers that we're collecting this year in order to generate the SPED percentage. We really kind of sat down and talked with our SPED team about why we're collecting these. And essentially, these are just for a federal requirement, I believe, that says we need to put kids into 3 buckets that says basically if they're in a public school setting, how much of their time are they being educated outside of their regular education? I'm not familiar with the exact terms for all this stuff. So we're thinking, why not just get rid of those fields, or at least make them optional? I mean, the fields are always there. They're part of EdFi core. But really, we just need to change the special education setting codes. Instead of having one code that says public school, we could have 3 codes that say less than, you know, such and such time, I don't know, 4 hours, or less than 20% or something. outside of regular education, between, and then a second one that's between this and that, and then a third one that's more than that amount of time. So it does mean that you will have to, anyone who was marked as a public school setting that you were reporting in special ed, that code would not work anymore, and you would have to convert them to one of these 3 new codes. However, you wouldn't have to submit sped hours or school hours for those, or for any of your students at that point. And yeah, for students outside of a public school setting, it wasn't really required.
This is an SRS, is that correct, Max?
This would be SRS and all the SI and all the SIS vendors would have to do this.
If they're pulling sped from their SIS.
Yeah, just basically any place that submits sped data would have to make this change.
Okay, thanks.
This is Suzanne. So we would have to go into every student and change them now again?
Yeah, every public school student, yeah.
And you're going to do this school year?
No, this is all for we're talking about 2021 updates.
Okay. Sorry, I was late coming in.
So yeah, it would be some work at the start, but I'm hoping it saves you the work of trying to figure out specifically all the special ed hours and school hours, figuring those out down, to the decimal point versus just being able to categorize students into one of these three buckets here. Yeah, I don't know the exact specs of what those 3 would be. I'll have to talk to Jill and our SPED team and get those kind of nailed down. But yeah, that would mean some work in the year that we convert next year. So just wanted to see if anyone had any other comments about that. So yeah, right in 1920, Kim, yeah, the sped hours and school hours are used to calculate the special ed percentage, aka the special ed FTE. So yeah, we do that calculation automatically now. I'm not sure what you mean by, you heard you had to figure it by hand this year. In Advisor, there's no field this year for you to submit it, the SPED percentage. We removed it this year in light of these other 2 fields. So I'm not exactly sure how you are using those figures that you do by hand. But yeah, under the 2021 system, basically we let the districts figure that out. And so yeah, it doesn't have to be tied into your calendar or anything like that necessarily. I'm not sure if you would have some automated systems at the districts to be able to figure these out for your students, or if you would kind of review everyone manually. But yeah, definitely, let us know about anything about how this might actually work for you. So we'll be following up on that one. Definitely. These are all just kind of our initial thoughts for 2021 based on all the stuff that's come up basically since we started the fall data collection. One other thing, not necessarily related to the definitions here, but we will definitely be trying to look at setting up a web service that will allow SIS vendors to talk SIS vendors to talk to person ID and directly request IDs. So kind of instead of or in addition to, we'll never get rid of the files. So you can do that directly through your SIS rather than having to download a file and upload it to person ID and download that file and upload it back into your SIS. So that's just loosely on our schedule. We haven't gotten into it yet. So yeah, Leah's, I know there was definitely a lot of work to get this stuff up and running this year, but technically that data you're talking about, collecting it, that's the data you need to be able to determine these codes. So I'm hoping that that work doesn't really go to waste necessarily. Vendors may still want to collect the data using these 2 sets of hours in order to generate these other 3 fields possibly. So it's really going to be a per vendor kind of choice. So, but yeah, we'll be following up with vendors and everyone about that. So the nice thing about being able to get the sandbox out in like February is that gives us time to still change things if we decide something is way wrong. So anyway, moving on, person ID. Nothing really new to say. It's been live. It's kind of basically working. We're fixing, we're getting a few tickets and we are fixing them generally pretty quick. Long term, we want to do some more, and I'm holding on to a few tickets that are related to getting the matching system to work better, and I will be looking at those. But again, yeah, we just have a lot of stuff on the schedule at the moment. But yeah, definitely if you run into any problems in person ID, send in the ticket and we will take a look at it. And just a reminder, you need a new portal access code to get into person ID. So you can get that from your district administrator if you didn't already have that. Next topic, I've been wanting to get this on here for a while. So the advisor dashboard, we haven't forgotten about it. ESUCC and NDE, we've been contracting with a local software developer company called Don't Panic Labs. They're here in Lincoln. They are rebuilding the dashboard for EdFi version 3, kind of updating its look in technology on the front end. Really, though, the bulk of the work is happening behind the scenes, improving its performance and being able to load the data and simplifying how that system works. It was kind of the Achilles heel of our old, the existing version 2 dashboard. As the school year went on, and as we got so much section data, it would end up taking more than 24 hours to build the dashboard nightly. So that's a real problem. And just EdFi didn't really have a version 3 dashboard. It's not really, they've kind of gone back and forth on their plans to actually support that, or provide that, I should say. So we've kind of been building it ourselves. Roughly, the first release of this new dashboard is scheduled for January. At that point, since we're not currently running a dashboard for 1920, so at that point I don't see any reason not to just release it to the districts right away. Although, and yeah, we may also get a demo dashboard put together around that time. We have to put together some new good demo data. However, that first release First release is really kind of a beta. It's not really, it doesn't have all the features yet. We will be adding them in a second release. We haven't determined the date yet. The main stuff that'll be missing is assessment data, interventions, and early warning system. So definitely key features. So it's not really ready to go live to all the teachers yet, but at least we'll be able to look at it and play around with it. Definitely will be gathering some feedback. But what I could do is show you some screenshots today. As the developers are working on it, they're running this. We're not running it on our servers yet, but they're running it locally where their developers are working on it. And they just use fake data, so it's not a real dashboard yet. But I wanted to show it to you anyways, just so you know that we are working on it. So here is basically, well, it's called the District Academic Dashboard, but essentially it's, if you're a district user and you log in, this is what you see. You can see a lot of this is kind of copied from the existing design. It's really not meant to be radically different than the old dashboard. You have some data about the district over here on the left, some stats. Again, keep in mind, none of this data necessarily makes any sense. It's just random kind of numbers. We have all these metrics here. These are mostly all the same metrics that we had under the old system. You know, and you've got your little tic tacs here that say if you're doing good or bad on all your metrics. And then you can click the view details link to drill into them. I think we're fitting more stuff on this page here. I think in the old system, if I remember, there were 2 rows of tabs up top to navigate everywhere. And this has been reduced down to 1 row here to kind of make it simpler. There's still a search page. You know, you're logged in as a user. There's still a breadcrumb trail here so you can see you're in the district and at the academic dashboard, and so you can navigate backwards. Nothing new there. The footer, pretty much the same as the old system here. It tells you what all these little icons mean. One new thing is there's a new menu in the upper left corner, which you can use to get around, which I don't believe the old system had. And here's where, if you have access to more than one district, you would pick where that is. And then also this gives you some of the same links that you see here in the tabs. It also lets you get around to your different schools. So like your high schools, elementary schools. So this is a district user who has access to everything. Then, you know, you can click into Lake LLC High School, I guess, and get to all the pages directly through the menu as well. Here's, you know, a district attendance and discipline page showing you some of the metrics. This really is almost exactly the same as the old system. Same here, grades and credits. Very similar, you know, different metrics. We should give you a little information about what the metric is, some data about it. You click on these menus here, the little 3 dots. Those are menus where you can click, and depending on what you're clicking on, you might get an option to see a list of students. So like ELA reading here, falling class grades, and then you might get a student list there, and you'll see something like this. All the students, we didn't have pictures for them yet, but generally you'll see their pictures and then some data about those students in relation to what you've clicked on. Also, this is the student list page by level. Like that's an existing page in the old dashboard as well. Teacher list, same idea. Of your district user, you can click into the list of all the teachers and then click into that teacher's page and see their students. Here's an example of a historical data chart. We had this in the old system as well. where you'll be on a metric here, you'll click the little menu that says show historical chart, and this will pop in. And, you know, it'll just be a basic bar line chart. Here's an example of the student page. So you've clicked into a single student, and it'll have their name and picture up at the top, and just data about the student, as well as all of the metrics about just that student. And I think that's it for screenshots. I just kind of want to give you an idea of where that's going. Do you want to have any questions about that? I'm sure we'll definitely be sharing a lot more of this at probably our data conference in, I think, May. I don't know the dates off the top of my head, but so yeah, as this gets closer to being available for districts to use, we'll be putting out more communications about it. It'll be something that you'll access through the Nebraska Cloud Portal. Oh, thank you, Melissa. It's April. Okay, sorry. Definitely, we'll, you know, you'll be able to access it through the Nebraska Cloud Portal, just like the old dashboard was accessed. So nothing new there. It'll still be based on, access to the dashboard is still based on the staff data that you submit to Advisor, that one little piece of staff data that we collect. But I'm really hoping the access will be a lot simpler than it was before. We had, like, you know, 40 different staff positions that give you 22 different levels of access in the dashboard, and I'm hoping to simplify that a little bit. So we're working on that right now. That's really all I can say about it at the moment. Like I said, I'm working with the company there, giving them a lot of feedback on the changes we want compared to the old dashboard, and working through all the back end data stuff.
And speaking of the data conference, Max, I had heard that there will still be a strand for data stewards. Is that correct? That there'll be one
Oh
for
yeah,
us, but also
I didn't ever.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I had always expected there would be.
Okay, good.
But I don't know if we are. I haven't heard if we're definitely setting up something like a strand exactly, and we're going to publish it that way or not. I haven't been involved in the conference planning, so. But yeah, I fully expect that there will still be lots of content for data stewards at
Okay.
that event.
All right, good. Thanks.
I don't know if we'll have, you know, as many full sessions for Advisor. I don't know if we'll spend 2 hours just talking about Advisor changes this year. There's not necessarily as much to talk about as last year, so.
I think there's room
we're still talking about it.
if they do ask you though. I think there's room for somebody to talk about the reports you can get out of Advisor, because there's an awful lot in there that I don't feel my schools even, like my CIP teams don't even know all those reports are in there.
Yeah, I've kind of noted that, Melissa, and I thought, like, yes, the conference is good, but I've also thought about just doing some monthly or twice a month type of webinars
Oh yeah.
on Fridays, just to say, hey, if you're this person, then we'll look at these reports. Like, I'm getting ready to put some assessment, how to look at your assessment labels and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. That
So
I think
that's
that makes
one
good,
approach.
That's good ideas for sessions too.
Right.
Yeah, before we've just had like a general Advisor validation introduction session, but I think we're ready to move into, you know, and we've kind of done this before, but we can make it more official. Basically, attendance reporting and data can be a session, course data and reporting could be a session. Assessment label, assessment data, English learner data, stuff like that. That all makes sense that we would run some sessions there, which is both about the content of the data as well as how to really use the reports to look at it.
Yeah, that would be good. Thanks.
And I'm assuming there'll also be a lot of sessions that are definitely more tailored for admin level people, so. As well as I know there's going to be, a good amount of AQuest accountability related stuff again. Lane will be running a lot of those, so. Just like we've done the last couple of years, so it'll be a mix. Anyway, vendor status updates. That's a good question, Greg, before we get to that. Greg's asking about the bulletin. First of all, if you already got the bulletin before because you were in the portal, oh, hey, look at that. Right in the front page is some data about our Perkins 5 state plan, by the way. So definitely I would encourage everyone to go check that out if you are interested. But anyway, if you weren't already signed up for the NDE bulletin by being in the portal, then now anyone could go sign up, and they just have to go here and click on the bulletin link on our webpage. No, at least when it works. So usually this is where our bulletin archive is, but yeah, I'll have to talk to Dave. This was, we had a web page here as of like 2 weeks ago. Anyway, if you go to this bulletin page, it will, it has some instructions about how the bulletin works. Okay, never mind, I found it. We just need to change the link on the home page there. So this page shows you everything that's posted to the bulletin, and I believe somewhere here it's also, well, I'm not sure, but I can find out the exact URL, and that will, there was a URL that has some instructions about how to sign up for the bulletin, and you just click through the website here to do it. So I'll make sure we get that posted. Last thing on my list, vendor updates, really nothing super new. I know that JMC has said they're working on CRDC stuff. They had asked me about that. Power School has had a release in November, and they're also planning a small December release. Amy, did you ever find out where the EL student fix program fix was going?
Well, from what I can tell, it did get released in November, but what's happening is it's still showing up in error. So that's a conversation you and I need to have.
Oh,
And
the
then where it's-
language error or something else?
Yeah, you're still getting a language error, but from what I can tell, they're sending not applicable.
Yeah. Yeah, then that's probably.
So I
That's
believe
a-
Power
that's
School
our
is
error.
fixed, but I need to confirm with you.
Okay. All right. And yeah, I know there's a few fixes scheduled for a December release. Last time I checked, Infinite Campus was working on some fixes still. So I'm assuming there'll be some fixes that go out there. Didn't know if John or Michelle were on the call. Had any updates?
Hi, this is Michelle. Yes, you got it right. We're working on some fixes, and we would just ask our customers to just be checking all the reports in Advisor and let us know as soon as possible if you see any issues.
So, yep, we are, getting to the quiet time. SRS, all the data, everything's publishing, but I do believe they are still getting some tickets and working through some issues. So they haven't stopped there. They're still working on it. Not sure if Scott was here. Doesn't look like it. Anyway, That's really all I had for vendor updates. We're kind of in the quiet time. Terry's asking about. That's a good question, Terry. Definitely, please put that into a ticket, and that's either something that could be a new code, or maybe we just need to define officially how that works for award of the court. And
I think you need to go back and collect
add
award of the court. That's my personal opinion.
just as a flag on a student, you mean?
Yeah, you used to collect it. And yeah, the thing is wards are super complicated and there are exceptions to many, many rules. So my personal opinion is you would be better off collecting a flag, and then you would probably be able to pull them or remove them from errors where they show up. But we can discuss that.
Not sure why that changed, but Terry definitely put in a ticket for that, and that will help us start the discussion internally here. At a minimum, we can definitely be covering that in the Who Reports What document too, as one of the cases. Anyone else have any other comments or questions not related to what's on the list here?
I have one more. This is Terry again. I am aware of the fact that the state is going to be doing a seal of biliteracy. Is that something that's going to be collected in Advisor that you know of?
Not that I've heard of, but.
What are they doing,
Okay.
Cheryl? Can you
familiar
repeat
with
that?
It's
called?
a seal of biliteracy.
Seal of biliteracy. Okay.
And it's going to be on, like, we did it this year on diplomas, and we need to have a field that is going to be on the transcript that shows that. And I heard that it was a statewide thing, and so I wanted to find out how it's going to happen.
And so
But I didn't know.
when you say biliteracy, they speak more than one language?
Right, they're considered fluent by any number of assessments, or somehow they've been identified as fluent in 2 languages.
Okay.
So I just knew it's out there. I just don't know where.
Well, no, but this is also
I
just.
have not heard of that.
So this is, but Cheryl, you bring this up. This is a good place to bring this up, because even if it doesn't affect Advisor, it does affect districts. And like you said, if it's something that has to be on a transcript, et cetera, then that's something that people might have to go back to their vendor and work with to get that information on there and figure out how to collect it. So even though it's not Advisor related, thank you for bringing that up, because those are the type of things that all of us need to know.
I'll go through the EL department, see if they can give me more information on that.
That would be great. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
I'll definitely look into it. All right. Anyone else? All right. Next meeting is scheduled for January 8th. I know a lot of you may not be in the office, and I think that's okay. Even if no one's here, I will just record myself talking to myself and be able to post it, just to give you an update on what's been going on. So yeah, definitely January 8th, I'll be here, and you can check on the meetings link for the recording a couple days after it's done. Thanks for joining, everyone, and talk to you next month.
Thank you.